What's up, Bitcoin Radio? It's your man, Joe Blackburn. Here we are for another installment of the Bitcoin Hour. I am your host, Joe, and we are going to have a treat today. We got Andy Bromberg. He's from Coinlist. He's the co-founder and president of that project. And, we're about to get a really cool insight and really good look into, the nature of the crowd raise, of the ICO, of the STO, and where we've come from and where we are today. So in the meantime, I wanted to bring up a couple things. I've got a kind of a cool announcement that I'm going to be sharing with the community, and I really want to bring about that live audience interaction soon. So we're going to start doing some live videos on the Bitcoin Radio channel on Facebook and probably Twitter as well, maybe even Instagram, and we'll include YouTube as that as well. But before we get into the interview, I just want to thank everybody again for their participation and for their influence and the success of this show so far. And I can't get great guests without people being interested and having people listen and watch. And Andy is a example of that. The Ditto PR agency, which is one of the top in the space. And I mean, they're not just with crypto; they're all over the place. But I want to give a big shout out to them and Trey and Liz and everybody else involved over there, Jake, etc. And thanks again, Ditto. But we'll bring on Andy here in a second. But keep in mind, folks, we're in a very beginning of this show, and I'm just so proud of where we stand today. And I look at where I am at in Crypto Coin Trader and what Bitcoin Radio is doing, and it's all a collection of people who care about the space, care about transparency, care about the blockchain, right? And so it goes without saying, though, we got to do this together. Support the good projects, and that's exactly why Andy fits in perfect today with that message. Is he's in the front end of this, and he went to Stanford. He was a co-founder of the Stanford Bitcoin Group, and I'll get him to explain a lot about that. I'm just learning some of this for the first time, obviously, but Andy has brought about a opportunity and a platform that kind of vets a lot and does a lot of different things that we haven't seen quite done the way they're doing it in the space. And again, I'm looking forward to having him on, and so I'm not going to wait too much longer. Andy, I'll bring you on now, actually. All right, everybody, this is Andy Bromberg. He is the co-founder and the president of Coinlist. What's up, Andy? Welcome to Bitcoin Radio.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Oh, man, my pleasure, dude. In fact, I've been looking forward to this interview since it was proposed to me that we would have the opportunity to bring you on, just because you guys have such a unique perspective on this market right now. And I mean, really, does it get any deeper than you, man? Like, let's kind of get a little bit of a background story first before we get to the questions. But tell us a little bit about Andy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I like you said, I got started in this space when I was at Stanford studying math and computer science, and started the Stanford Bitcoin Group with a few other folks. And that was led at the time by Balaji Srinivasan, who most recently was the CTO of Coinbase, and before that ran Earn.com and was a partner in Andreessen Horowitz. And it was him and another professor, and then 7 of us students. And we did a bunch of advocacy work. We built some cool projects. We did a lot of academic research on Bitcoin. This is back in 2012, 2013. There was not a lot of that happening. And so we got kind of an early start on that and got to pay some attention to the space, meet everyone. And it was a really small community in those days, which is really exciting.
Absolutely. And, although we weren't connected or we didn't really know each other, we all share that similar experience about, that time period, especially early on. And, where we're at today is a direct reflection from people like me and you. And I don't want to put myself in the same category as you, but of that, at least that interest, that desire, that passion to promote this space and take its assets and what blockchain is able to do for this world, right? And really present it to not just the community, but to the world. And, I see what Coinlist is doing and what your goals and your missions are, but let's start from the foundation. Why did you even start Coinlist, Andy?
Yeah, so Coinlist got started originally as a collaboration between Protocol Labs, who's building Filecoin, and an AngelList, the top startup fundraising platform. And Filecoin, Protocol Labs needed a platform to run the Filecoin token sale, and so they enlisted AngelList's help with compliance and actually running that process. And as they were going through that process of getting the Filecoin token sale live, everyone stepped back and said, wow, this is really hard. This costs a lot of money to do one of these token sales right. Every single token issuer is going to need this exact same set of services. We should spin this out as a new company. So we spun out of AngelList at the end of 2017 after completing the Filecoin token sale. And I was one of the founders at that time of the project. And so there's 5 of us that went out and started this new independent Coinlist to go and provide exactly those services to the broadest array of token issuers and high quality token issuers that we can. And so from that point forward, in the last couple of years, we've helped run a lot of token sales, helped with compliance, helped with managing the actual process and the logistics and some marketing, and have helped that whole stack of helping projects raise money, and then have started some other services as well along the way. But it really came from that genesis of saying these token projects need to go through a fundraising process. That is not their expertise. What can we do to make it really easy for them so they can focus on going back and building products that need to exist?
Sure. And, I think about all the different projects that we've seen from, the 2016, 2017 time period up until now. And with what you offer, there's a lot of risk associated with just attaching yourself to any project, right? And I know you have to be impartial and you have to be very, committed to doing your job. But at the same time, you've got to be careful who you work with, So what has that been like in that evolution of where the market has been, and starting like back in 2017 when all this stuff was happening? I'm assuming the time period for Coinlist was even back then, But I know in 2018, because I saw one of your interviews that was on I think it was on MSNBC. It was really neat to hear the way that you explained this. But I'll let you kind of take it from here. What is it like that you had to look for, especially early on, man? Like, where did you draw the line? What was right? What wasn't right? What was wrong?
Yeah, no, so you're absolutely right. We put projects through a long, hard vetting process before we actually publicly work with any projects. And that's really important for us because there are so many bad projects in the space that we're just not comfortable putting up on our website. And so you have to be really careful. When we think about that process, we think about what smart investors should do when they're looking at a token project. And that's really what this boils down to. If you're a smart investor in token projects, what is it that you're looking for? And the framework that we've come up with there, and I'll go through this quickly and then we can dig in deeper, really has 6 points. 4 of them are things that you should look at, whether you're investing in a token project or just a normal startup, even if it's just normal startup equity. The team, the product, the market, and the deal terms. So team, is it a strong team that you're willing to bet on for the future? Product, is it a product that needs to exist in the world? Is it actually going to make a difference? Market, are they going after a big market? And deal terms, the deal terms make sense. Is the price reasonable for what it is that you're getting? So those 4 things, I would say every venture capital firm in the world looks at those and they're evaluating a deal. Every crypto firm looks at them. And those are important to start with. But then you layer on these last 2 items that are specific to crypto that you don't have to look at if you're investing in a normal startup. The first of those is the legal structure. This is not fun to look at, but it's really important. There is so much innovation happening at the legal level and how people are structuring these deals that it's just such a new world, and you have to be able to look at that and make sure that they're doing things in a compliant way that you can feel comfortable with backing for the long term. So you got to look at that legal structure, and then the last piece, the most nuanced piece, is what we call the token economics. So is this token going to accrue value in the long term? If the network's successful, will the token actually grow in value? Will it be a good investment? And that's a really important piece of it. And then there's other kind of smaller pieces of the token economics. Are the incentives on the network properly aligned so that good actors do the right thing and bad actors stay away from the network and don't try and attack it? And so you get into all these details. So yeah, for us, again, just stepping back, the team, the product, the market, the deal terms, all absolute baseline foundation items you've got to look at if you're vetting a project as a good crypto investor. And then on top of that, we look at the legal structure and then the token economics as those last 2 criteria.
No, and like you mentioned, the first 4 that you had obviously spoken about. I mean, that's everybody. That's like whether you're you're an angel investor into a normal startup in San Francisco, or if you're in where I'm at near New Orleans, and you're trying to do something of similar quality or capability, you still got to get investors, and they're still going to be looking, if they're smart at least, they're going to be looking at these things. But you brought up a great point especially with the legal, right? And to me, this space is still the chapters are being written, even in whether it be the legalities or how you can raise or whatever it might be, in an ever-changing space with gray areas being filled in. I mean, this has got to be frightening for someone in your shoes.
Yeah, you have to be really careful. I think everyone does in this space. There's so many, many of the laws are unwritten and there's gray areas and you have to work your way around that and do what you think is best. And so we've, in some sense it's challenging. For us, the flip side of that is that at times it's not that hard because we tend to just take a very conservative stance. We're out there and saying, we're building this business for the long run. We're not trying to, make a quick buck in the next year or 2 and get out of it. We're saying we're building this for a long time. And if you're doing that, if you're taking that approach, you have to be conservative about these things because the legal side can pose an existential risk. If you step over the line, that can be the end of the story. Your business can be done. And so for us, our approach has been be super conservative. Yes, that might mean that you give up a few opportunities on day 0 and day 1, but it ensures that you're around on day 1,000 and keep operating and growing the business at that point.
Yeah, and especially someone doing what Coinlist is doing as a whole. If you wanted to make a quick buck, you could have already done that. I have no doubts, right? And you could have been gone, living on in Bora Bora somewhere, drinking your nice little margaritas or whatever it might be over there in Bora Bora. But regardless, I love the way that you kind of shape that and explain the way that you have to approach this. So let's kind of move into where we're at today. And obviously, we could talk about 2017 for years, right? I mean, there's enough information in that. But 2018 really kind of highlighted a lot of the problems, and we came crashing down as expectations crumbled. And people have kind of backed off in a lot of ways of that traditional I'll say that traditional ICO raise, from 2017. But now we're in this newer age where the expectations are higher and investors are smarter, thankfully, obviously. But what is happening right now in the space, and are you still optimistic about where this is going to be?
Yeah, I'm very optimistic. Unsurprisingly, we're still working hard over here.
For the record, I know that was kind of obviously
it's a good question to ask. Right? Yeah, we're still optimistic. I think what's happening is the norms are slowly being set. In 2017, it was a free for all, right? There was so much capital available. There were so many projects out there, and so everyone was just spraying and praying in every direction. 2018, like you said, things crashed down, and everyone pulled back really aggressively. And now the feelers are starting to come back out. And everyone's saying, well, listen, we're still bullish on this space. We want this to succeed. We believe that there's something here. We just have to be more diligent about it. And people are saying that on the project side and on the investor side and on the user side. And so those people are starting to explore what actually makes sense. One thing that happened recently, we hosted the Algorand auction. And that was interesting because they tried an auction, right? They tried this whole new mechanism for running a sale. Rather than setting a price of an auction of a token and selling it, they ran an auction and ran it that way. I think you're seeing exploration with IEOs and that approach of running a sale right as it goes live, almost more like a traditional IPO where there's immediate liquidity for the people that invest in that offering. And I think you're seeing a whole bunch of different exploration play out. We're having discussions with a ton of different token issuers on different models, and that's exciting because that means that we're getting a chance to try out these different models, see what sticks, and it's going to set the expectations for the next few years when these models start to kind of solidify and we see what actually works.
Yeah, man, no doubt. And I think about the IEO, and although I don't know if that's the ideal way that if I could write it myself, that's how I would want this space to be driven, I guess. But the IEO brings up a lot of accountability, and it's not just from the project at that point; it's also from the exchange. And as the exchanges have to attach themselves or allow this, if it's constantly scam after scam, well, no one's going to believe in this anymore. And it's another huge black eye for the space. So I find that the IEOs that I'm seeing, especially in the credible exchanges, are at least really well vetted, and they take a lot of risk. I don't want to say on a financial level because this market's very volatile, but at least on whether or not scam or not scam, they're taking a lot of the risk out, at least in my perspective. And I don't want to, this is not a endorsement for IEOs or ICOs or STOs. This is more so just on a personal, feeling. Do you see what I'm saying as kind of the social norm now, or would you say that's kind of the industry norm?
I think it's happening. I also think it depends exchange to exchange how much they're actually doing, right? Not every exchange is doing the same level of diligence or vetting as every other one. I think it's just becoming a necessary reality. Investors are expecting it. And so even if you're an exchange out there and you don't want to do that sort of work, you don't want to vet the projects, you want everyone to raise money on your platform, investors aren't going to go for that.
Exactly.
Investors look at quality. And that's been our bet the whole time is if we only work with high quality projects, investors will recognize that and come to us. And that's been certainly true over the last couple of years. And I think as there's this flight to quality is happening through 2018, 2019, it's just becoming something you have to do. It's not even so much a best practice as it is a necessary factor to make sure you're not working with bad people.
Yeah, that's a really good point, man. All right, so let's talk about where do you think we're shaping up into? Is this something that you're looking at and you're seeing traditional investors starting to eye this space a little bit more, or would you say that we're still trying to prove ourselves?
Both, right? I think traditional investors are starting to eye the space. We are seeing some people move in and make bets, but I think we're very early. And we hear over and over again that the institutional wave is coming. The institutional wave is coming. People are going to start investing lots of capital. I believe that's true. I don't necessarily believe that it's going to happen in a flash, and that in 2 months we're going to wake up and there'll be $10 billion of inflows from institutional investors into the crypto space. That seems unlikely. And so I think it's just a matter of kind of slowly moving up the chain, getting more investors on board. And, we see this. The market goes up, the market goes down, but every single month, more people are aware of crypto as a market, more people are buying in, and you're just exposing a broader audience to the network. And so that's really exciting to me and something that I think is driving a lot of adoption, will continue to over the years. But it's also important, again, and I'm a broken record on this, we need to have high quality projects to hold up and show those new people. We need to have success stories, right? Exactly. A lot of those ICOs from 2017 are just launching now. And hopefully some of them will be massively successful in their adoption and actually driving usage. And that's a good story to be able to tell new investors and convince people to start paying attention to the space.
Absolutely, man. And really, really well said. I'm somebody who is dealing with the public on a social level, right? I'm on Facebook. I have a community on Facebook. It's gotten over 100,000 people. We have 75, 80,000 active members per month there on Crypto Coin Trader. And I love that group, but man, it can be as toxic as any space in the history of the world, right? I mean, it can be so nasty because people are so devastatingly, broken over what happened to their coins from 2017. And I always try to remind people, we're in a area and in a space that has not been figured out yet. People have no clue really what the blockchain is doing. 95% of you, if not more, have no idea what you're actually holding. And I mean, we don't have a choice but to be patient, or you can just get out of the space whatsoever. And if we're not highlighting, if we're not appreciating the good projects, the ones that are actually doing things to help this space, then we're doing a disservice to everybody, because we're just going to let the bad actors be the ones that are in the news. So I love what you're doing, Andy. What do you think we're going to see over the next year?
Yeah, I think first of all, we're going to see a bunch of these projects that were super ambitious and raised in 2017 to build something really challenging. We're going to see them launch. And I'm thinking about, top of mind for me is Filecoin, the first token sale we ran.
Sure.
We just helped with the Blockstack Reg A offering they just ran. And a bunch of these projects are going live. And that will be a real proving ground. Seeing how those things pan out, how people actually start to use these projects is going to be, I think, a keystone moment for the space. And that's something I think that we're going to see a lot of right now. And the second thing I think we're going to see is a lot of experimentation in the models for how these token sales and token distributions are run. I talked about auctions, IEOs. I think every variation of those is going to be tried in the next year or so as people can desperately search for the right mechanism for fundraising and distribution in this space. And I think we'll see a lot of interesting experiments there.
What do you think is so attractive about the blockchain ability that is going to propel this next wave? I look at this, and this is from a non-technical perspective, and so I never claim to be an engineer or a developer. That's not what I do. But, there's a lot of things and a lot of projects that have wonderful intentions, great and awesome ideas, but just simply have no place on the blockchain, right? And I'm not going to give any examples. I'm not trying to sit there and crush anybody's token hopes, but we have to deal with the fact that not everything is supposed to be on the blockchain, and the things that are that deserve to be on the blockchain that may not have been highlighted yet or discovered or even created, those things we need to support as a community. How do you guys go about really getting the attention for some of your projects? I mean, it's hard enough for me just to kind of find some projects sometimes. And, I remember Filecoin, and you guys did a great job with Filecoin, by the way, because I didn't even know that you were behind that raise. And, the things that I saw about Filecoin were all, for the most part, very positive as far as when the raise was going on. But what is it like that you're doing differently as well? Like how just tell us, what's the method to this madness without telling everybody your secrets?
Right. Yeah. Well, I think one recognition you have to have, you were talking about kind of use cases and what's going to happen here. I think if you're excited about this space, which I know you are, I certainly am, you have to believe that we do not know right now what some of the best applications of blockchain technology are going to be. In the same way that if we were talking about the internet in 1992, you can definitely think of some interesting applications. You can brainstorm, this will be interesting, we'll be able to do that. But a lot of the most interesting ones, you could have had no idea until we actually advanced further in the space. And so a big part of what we do is just exposing people to that, making people realize, hey, think about this new concept. This project is trying something brand new you've never heard of before. Let's try and explain that. And taking the time and having the trust for us is a really important piece. To be able to explain that to people is key. And again, for us, a lot of this is around our brand and the trust that we've built. Investors are willing to listen to us and hear what we have to say about a new project. They, of course, make a decision on their own and judge the project on its merits. But we're able to spend some time educating about what's going on in the space and where things are going.
Absolutely. And we can let's talk a little bit about like actually Coinlist per se here, and obviously, I'm not part of Coinlist, and we're just getting a chance to know each other for the first time ourselves, Andy. So, some of these are actual questions that Joe personally has, but, what is your involvement post sale though? Let's say the sale's over, you guys did a great job. Obviously you're rooting for the success of that project, but is there any involvement post sale?
Yeah, absolutely. We still spend a lot of time with projects, and it's a few different ways that happens. One is just informally, right? We try and position ourselves as a trusted advisor to these projects. We have a great view of what's happening in the space. And so once we work with a project, just having them come to us, ask us questions about liquidity or how they're going to drive adoption or things like that, we can often be really helpful just because we sit at kind of the center of a lot of things, and we can make introductions or offer them advice on what direction to turn or look. So that's one big piece. Aside from that, we do offer some services for after the sale. So one is helping with the token distribution itself. When it's time for the network to go live, for tokens to go to investors, we often help with distributing those tokens and actually getting them out to investors. And then we have other services too. We help with hosting hackathons to build developer communities for these projects. We have an airdrops product to help give away tokens and encourage broader adoption. And so there's lots of ways that we work with projects after the sale itself, and we just try and keep up relationships. And I think one important insight there is that, Coinlist is a great business. We can certainly do more. We can close more deals. We can grow the business. But our biggest opportunity for growth is if the crypto space as a whole grows 10 or 100 or 1,000 times, right? Absolutely. That is, and same with every company in the space. Your biggest route for growth is the whole space growing 100 times bigger. And so for us, part of our attitude is just selfishly, we want to help as many great projects as we can, because if they are successful, the space will be successful, which means that we'll be successful. And growing that space and growing the pie is an important mentality if you're working in this industry.
Man, absolutely, and really, really well said. I like the way you articulate your answers too, Andy. You do a really good job of presenting, the information that you're trying to explain. I think one of the I don't want to say the untouchable conversations that people can't have, but I've been somewhat privileged to hear stories from the back end and in the back rooms of this space, and it always comes down to listings, right? And we've all been one way or the next, attached to a coin that was getting listed on Binance or getting listed on Bittrex, and then because people know that in advance, there's insider trading or whatever. People can say what they want. This is a free market right now, and although there is regulatory, stuff coming in, and there are some bad guys in the space that will take advantage of the lack of regulations, in some ways. But for the most part, I've actually been pretty impressed with the ability for people to just treat each other pretty kindly in crypto. We get a lot of flack and we get a lot of, crap thrown at us because, we're all mad about this coin going down. But, as far as listings go, has it been as shady as everybody thinks it is?
I think it really varies when you look at different ends of the market. At the top end of the market, the best exchanges and the best projects, it's really not shady. There's pretty straightforward transactions because there's demand on both sides. Well, I think where things get shady is when there's a mismatch, right? When either there's a token that an exchange really wants on its platform, right? And the exchange does not have a lot of prestige, or the flip side, an exchange with a lot of prestige and a token that does not have a lot of value that wants to get listed. When there's that mismatch, that's where I think some of the shady things come into play. And so if you keep yourself operating at the high levels of the space, working with good projects, good exchanges, I think things tend to happen pretty straightforwardly and reasonably.
That's a really great point. And, I look at where we're at now, especially with all the regulations coming for U.S.-based companies and the U.S.-based exchanges, Kraken, Bittrex, et cetera. There's not a lot of wiggle room right now to mess up. Even if, these exchanges, they know, right? If they even mess up with the expectation that the law might change, they know they're going down the drain. And Bittrex has, specifically speaking, I'm a big Bittrex fan. I've been, using Bittrex for a long time. And I look at how they've conducted themselves and put themselves in a position to kind of lead the way. And this goes for Kraken too. And I'll even throw Polo in there, although I don't use Ponyx. And I know there's several other exchanges that I could mention. But to my main point here is that I love watching this shape or this space shape itself, and this human element that, yeah, there might be some bad players, but it doesn't take long to get rid of those bad players. And now there's just so many different expectations that if you're not following these expectations, you're going to get exposed. And everybody already knows that this is what bad looks like. Now, of course, that book's not written yet either. The criminal will always figure out a way. But for the main, I guess, meat and potatoes of what crypto is today, it's getting better. What would you say to a project right now that has a great idea that doesn't have the exposure? I mean, is this something they can just come straight to you and be like, "Yo, look, Andy, I got this great idea," or is there a little bit more to it? What are your expectations for a project when they come to you?
Yeah, no, we're always happy to talk to projects at pretty much any stage of their development. And, what we can actually offer them may vary, of course, as they are at different stages and progressing through the cycle. But, like I said, we want the space to grow. And so even if there's no kind of deal to be worked out immediately, we love talking to people and seeing how we can grow the space and make their opportunity successful. And so, yeah, we're always happy to talk to people. I think at the same time, we give a lot of the same advice over and over again to people with these brand new early stage, just an idea moments, which is go build it.
Yeah.
Right. And ideas are great, but you got to execute on it. And so building it, having proofs of concept, starting to build a community on your own, even if it's not the biggest one in the world, get some attention around it, get some validation. Those are the sorts of things you can do to really de-risk a project, make it more attractive for any partner, Coinlist or otherwise, to work with you.
Of course.
And so, I just think a lot of it is taking the time, putting in the elbow grease. We saw in 2017, saw a lot of people just look for an easy way out, right? Like, oh, there's tons of money in this crypto stuff. What can I do to just, run a token sale and get away and do it with as little work as possible? And there were opportunities. A lot of people managed to do bad things in 2017. Like I was saying, in 2019, the standards have gotten way higher, and you can't slip by with something that's not good. And so, that's a good thing for the space. The bar is getting higher. You got to make sure you put the work in.
No, man, agreed. So, like, as 2020 is coming up, and I know that, as you already mentioned earlier, there's some projects that from the 2017 era that are really starting to move forward now, like they're launching or they're able to provide that service that they've been talking about. What do you think about, just the overall health of the market as of today?
Yeah, I think we're at an interesting time. I think one thing we're looking at really closely is that, Bitcoin, its dominance, percentage dominance is going up. And the narrative around Bitcoin is getting really strong. And that is exciting for the space because Bitcoin is, the original product in the crypto space. And it's starting to kind of, for a little while there, for I'd say really 2017, a little bit of 2018. And then, of course, before that, the whole crypto space moved in tandem. When the space went up, the space went up. When the space went down, the space went down. Everything was so tightly correlated with each other. And Bitcoin is starting to break away from that. And whether or not you're a fan of Bitcoin, that should be exciting for you because it means that no longer is the space being viewed as one homogenous thing, which it's not.
Agreed.
People are realizing that there can be different narratives for different products in the space, and they'll break off from each other and start to decouple a little bit. And so that's something we're excited about is Bitcoin developing its own narrative separate from the rest of the space means that other things can do that too. It can set an example for other projects to follow. So that's a really exciting thing. I do think outside of that, we're in a little bit of an in-between time, right? Like I was saying, a lot of projects are getting set to launch. A lot of things are under development, but nothing has really kind of caught fire recently. And I think the space is waiting for a little bit of a catalyst to come to ignite everything and get the market going again.
Absolutely. I'm looking at this right now, and this is obviously from an amateur perspective, at least of the market. I see, the STOs, the ones that can actually pay dividends, the ones that can actually go up in price based off of not just a utility token, but an actual reason for value. And as securities actually contain real equity of projects or real dividends from projects, that's what excites me the most is this micro investing, the real estate opportunities, the businesses that can then sell, this part of their profits, or, if you can invest and help us get to a certain point, you're going to get rewarded with this amount. And to me, with like what people can do with smart contracts is essentially unlimited. There is not a lot that they can at least spin. If you could imagine it, at least in the digital world, it can probably be created at some point. And although, that's very, I guess I don't want to embellish the space too much, but there's a lot of truth to that because I just keep seeing new things. And another question I have for you, Andy, is do you see STOs as this big, huge future for this space, or do you just say they're not even correlated? They can all be successful.
Well, I think the latter. Certainly, they can all be correlated. They can all be successful. I'm excited about STOs and asset-backed tokens, like you were talking about.
Yep.
I think they're a little ways out, and I don't think they're coming right now. And the reason for that is that if you think about the investor set, who would actually invest in an STO, you really have two categories. You've got one, which is crypto investors, people that have been investing in ICOs for the last couple of years.
Yep.
We have not seen. I think a lot of those investors are looking for, with that portion of their portfolio, 100x or 1000x returns. That's why they're investing in ICOs. And STOs typically do not offer that, right? Again, investing in real estate via a token, it's not going to 1000x. It's not going to happen. Now, it's
be lucky if it doubles.
Exactly. Way less risky, but just a different profile, right? So I look at that category of investor, and I think those people are less likely to invest in real estate-backed tokens. And the other type of investor that might invest in a real estate STO is a traditional real estate investor, right? Someone from outside of crypto that is interested in getting the benefits of real estate tokenized. And I also don't think that person is quite ready to invest yet, because they're looking at it and they're saying, listen, there's a million deals out there I can do. Why would I do one with this weird crypto stuff, right? Like, I'm going to keep doing normal pen and paper deals. And that may be better, maybe worse, but it's what they're used to. And so I think we're not at a point right now where the investor appetite is there for really meaningful STOs. There will be some successful ones, no doubt about it. But for the market to really be massive, I think we have to get there on that investor appetite. I think that'll take a few more years for us to really get over the hump.
Yeah, good points. And I agree. I try to remind people that unless you're already in crypto and you're rich, I mean, if you're in crypto and you're rich, great. I mean, I'm glad to have you, right? But if you're rich and you never even touched crypto, why would you get in, right? I mean, people got to be really realistic about their expectations. And man, you nailed it when you said people want that 10x, that 100x, that 1000x. But I think a lot of people might, because their expectations have been tempered a little bit on this level, over the last year and a half with alts specifically, just to have a 10% win might actually sufficiently at least
that's true.
Supply some rays of hope. But what happens to the human mind? It just gets greedier, right? So 10% only lasts for what, maybe a month if they're lucky before they either get out or they're complaining again. So, man, it's a space that can be so weird. People are just so spoiled, man. Anyways, all right, Andy, what I missed, man? Let's hear from you a little bit. What any thoughts that I may have not asked a question on, or that I didn't get deep enough?
No, I think you covered a lot of ground there. I think those are the main points. I think, like we were saying, just thinking about the evolution of how these deals are structured, and what the changes are going to be, the experiments that are going to happen over the next year. That's something I'm really excited about. I'm interested in seeing, what catalyzes the space next. What's the narrative that really catches on in the coming months or year that gets people really excited about something in the space, and that's a big question for me about what that's going to be.
Sure. Now, okay, and obviously I'm being a little forward here, but what do you think that is? Just like, I mean, what do you think it is?
It's tough to say right now. I think the narrative that has picked up the most steam in the last year is the DeFi narrative, right? Decentralized finance as a new use case. And I think there's a lot of very interesting things there. I think a lot of cool development has happened. I don't think anything's really caught on yet in terms of tons of usage, but it could be something from that. That's the space that's the kind of sector within crypto that I think has gained the most in the last year.
Yeah. And, Uber is an easy example to use because it really did disrupt an industry. It took, the means of transportation to a completely different level that if you told me about that idea prior to, like, nobody's just going to pick up strangers for a couple bucks, on a car ride. But boy, would I have been wrong, because clearly the need for it exists. Obviously, I know Uber's up and down on a business financial level, but it just proves that, something that, I'm not the only person who thought that. I've had this discussion with many people, and very, very bright people, that they would never even invested in Uber with that thought process, because they didn't think it would catch on. People would be too scared to pick up strangers. And, it's really, really crazy to think that the next Uber, and when I say that, I mean that in a disruptive way, is probably going to come, or one of the next Ubers is probably going to come from the blockchain space. And I can't wait to see what that is. And there will be something. And I had somebody tell me, I was having this exact same discussion about a completely different project, or a completely different side of tech, but they said, hey, look, that Uber that you're talking about, that actually already came in crypto, and that was Bitcoin, right? Don't forget that, Joe. And I had to take a step back because Bitcoin's just always been around since I've been in crypto. So I look at it as a standard. But that Bitcoin Uber reference to me was so just like in my heart, it shook me up, and I want to quote him, but he told me not to attach himself to that. But nevertheless, but do you feel the same way? Do you think that maybe it is we already seen our Uber though?
Yeah, well, listen, I think certainly I'm a big fan of Bitcoin. I think it's incredibly meaningful. There's a lot more companies out there than just Uber. And so, even if Bitcoin's the Uber, there are many other internet companies out there and some that are much bigger than Uber. And so that's possible. I think Bitcoin has a real shot at being the best and the biggest, but I don't think it'll be the only asset out there.
Of course. And obviously, I agree with you, by the way. And I like to get your perspective, and I think you answer questions in a really genuine and authentic way. So I appreciate that, too, about you, Andy. All right, man. Well, look, I always finish my interviews with this thing I call Quickfire and have nothing to do with crypto outside of maybe a reference, right? So I'm going to ask you some questions. I didn't prepare you for this, and I hope you have some fun. You ready?
Let's do it.
Favorite movie of all time?
Oh, man.
You can
Pulp
say
Fiction.
Pulp Fiction. Man, that is a common occurrence. Everybody loves
I
Pulp
know.
Fiction.
These crypto people, right? Yeah.
But it goes to show something. There is that mentality inside of us. If we're all connected and we can all share these, even if we're so different, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously I love Pulp Fiction as well, but it comes up all the time. All right. So biggest influence from the blockchain space as a person goes. Who's been the most influential?
Balaji, who originally started the Stanford Bitcoin group with us, and then ended up being the CTO at Coinbase, has just been taught me a lot about the space and got me into it in the first place.
Awesome. Bitcoin as a political party.
Bitcoin is a component of a political platform. Absolutely. Bitcoin is a political party by itself. Not so much.
Fair enough. All right. And good answer. All right. So as we understand the Earth today, we're just a moment in the history of the universe, and time is a measurement that humans have created to make sense of all of this. But in the sense of time and in the sense of this planet that we live on called Earth, do you think aliens have ever visited and landed on planet Earth?
Oh, man. I find it unlikely, but plausible.
I mean, I tell people, I try to remind them, and I'm like, look, humans have only been around for 200,000 years, according to the anthropologists, and then even if we're off by 100,000 years, that's still nothing in comparison of the dinosaurs being 60 million years ago, and the beginning of Earth 4 billion. So you just never know. Maybe the last time aliens came by, they just flew by and it was just an orange ball of lava, and like
right.
Nothing to see here. So who knows, right? Yeah, exactly. You just never know. And at some point, you can hope that we all evolve into a certain area where you just don't even need to interact with any other planet.
Yeah.
But I look forward. I'm a huge Star Trek guy. All right, so that leads me to my last question. And your favorite character, book, movie, play, doesn't matter, that has influenced you on a fictional level and has been the most, I'd say, foundational person in your life that's not real.
Most foundational person that is not real.
Yeah.
Man,
shaped you.
That is a really tough question. I think if we go chronologically, when I was very young, I read Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think that just like desire to go and improve and be the best at something has probably done a lot for me over the years. Although honestly, I haven't really thought about it for probably a decade until you asked this question. But early on, I think that probably had a big impact.
That's to me, that's a great answer. In fact, I mean, I've seen the movie only. I never read the book. But I love the movie and the story that it tells, and it's inspiring too. So I think it's a good answer. I'm a huge Jean-Luc Picard fan. Anybody who listens to my shows, but Star Trek Next Generation, you can't beat it. If you're not a fan yet, there's something wrong with you, or you haven't seen it. That's what I always say. Fair?
Mm-hmm. Fair.
All right. Anyways, thanks, Andy, for coming on. I really appreciate it, man. Your insight is welcome here at any point. Please look me up if there's ever something you want to announce. I would love to have you on my show again. And you're doing a great thing for this community, the space, and just in general, helping evolve the humans into the next realm of transparency and the ability to transact, without the need of the government, right?
Love it. Right back at you, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. All right, Bitcoin Radio. If you like Andy, my bad. Where can they find you at? If someone wants to get in touch with you, they love you to death or whatever.
Yeah, reach out to us, team@coinlist.co, or look me up. I'm on Twitter at Andy_Bromberg. And yeah, just shoot me a note.
Absolutely. You're a sharp looking guy. You're a sharp spoken guy, man. I appreciate it again, Andy. Bitcoin Radio, make sure that you give them some love. Let them know that you were listening. And obviously, if there's anybody who's got a great idea and you're going to be the next Uber or the next Netflix, you might want to call them, right? Hurry. Anyways, until next time, Bitcoin Radio, the cryptoverse does belong to all of us. It is our job to take care of it. You see what Andy's doing. You know what I'm doing. Until next time, we'll see you soon.